YouTube, this is Dan the Fix-It Man. Got another quick video here for you. I'm going to show you how to change the radiator on a 2004 Toyota Tundra, and this is the double cab model and automatic transmission. And like a lot of these radiators nowadays, it's a plastic tank, and these sometimes will split, and we've got a leak all along the top here, and really it was leaking pretty bad, so we're just going to swap that out. The first thing we're going to do is drain the coolant. Okay, so from underneath here, here's the radiator, and you can see this little plastic wing nut. That's just that's the plug, and it's usually just hand tight. In this case, it's coming out just easy. I don't have a skid plate on this truck, so it's easier to get to and work on and change the oil. But we'll just drain that coolant out. Okay, while we're waiting for the coolant to drain out of there, I'm going to take off these shroud bolts here, the fan shroud bolts. There's 1, 2, and then 2 more on the other side, and those are 10 millimeter. Okay, and now that we've got the fan shroud bolts off, the next thing we need to do are take off the 4 bolts that here in the front that go through and support the radiator. There's also a hook here, kind of a part of that radiator frame that's attached to the sides, and that's what holds it in place. So your radiator is not going to fall when you take these out. But there's another one down here, and then on the other side here we've got 2 more, 1 and 2. So we just got to loosen those and take them out. There we go. Okay, now for the other side. Got the top bolt here. We can take this bottom bolt out here as well. To remove the upper radiator hose, just grab this clamp. I'm just using this offset pair of needle nose pliers, and just pull that off. And then also this overflow hose. This overflow hose you can just grab with a pair of pliers as well, or in this case I'm using these needle nose. Just twist it, it'll come off. Sometimes there's a little clamp. This one doesn't seem to have it, but. And then we can twist and pull this upper radiator hose off. There, oops. There we go. Okay, now down here underneath, and you can see lots of fluid's been flowing out of here, but we're going to go ahead and take off the bottom radiator hose. And that's just another one of those same type of clamps. Just slide it back on the hose a little bit, it's fine. And we can also just pull that off. Just be aware that you'll probably get some fluid out of there, so you should have a bucket or a drain pan below. There we go. Okay, and so we've got a couple transmission lines down here too, and we want to loosen those, and again, just a pair of pliers works. Just pull that clamp back a little bit. Now I'm going to plug that for a minute. I'm just going to shove a socket extension up in that line. That way we don't lose too much of that transmission fluid. Now here's the other transmission line. Same thing, just undo that clamp, fairly simple, and grab some pliers and twist that back. You just want to go slow. You don't want to crimp this hose or kink it or anything. But again, to minimize the loss on the transmission fluid, I'm going to shove a socket extension in the end here once I get it off. So I've got that ready. It's minimal, the loss, but I'd rather have something in there to keep it from dripping everywhere. Okay, now we can just kind of push the shroud back just a little bit so that you can grab a hold of that radiator and just pull it straight out. And here's the new radiator ready to go back in. I notice here we've got some foam, like this little foam strip, kind of between the front part of the. Well, I'll show you. It goes right here. I don't know if that's just to protect the radiator, but I've got a piece of foam. I'm gonna put it in the same place. The new one doesn't have any on it, and this one's all soaked in grease and oil and coolant. So I'm just going to put a new piece of foam in there when I put it in. Okay, so we're ready to put the new one in. You just want to put that in slowly, gently, so you don't mess up any of those nice, clean cooling fins. They're all nice and straight. We don't need to bend those or bang those up. Okay, that fan shroud was kind of giving me some trouble. There we go. And if you just kind of watch it on the way down, you can line it up with those little hooks that I showed you. There's like little slots, and they'll go right in. There we go. And that's in. See this little hook right here? That's what's holding this in right now. There's one on each side. And it really helps just kind of watching that as you're putting it in. I like to put these lines back in first, so I'm going to pull this socket out of here and put this on the new radiator. Get that all put back together so we can stop losing fluid. Get this button back up. So I'm just going to put the clamp back on here as well. Push the shroud out of the way for a second. And there we go. One more transmission line. Same thing. I'm going to pull the socket out of here that was temporarily plugging our transmission fluid from leaving. And there we go. Got that on. And we'll pull that clamp back on. You just want to make sure that seats on there well. I'm going to pull it a little bit closer. You can feel when the clamp goes just past the end of that, the nipple on the end of that fitting. And now the lower radiator hose. These hoses were replaced not too long ago, so I am just reusing them. But if you're changing them, it's easy enough to pull them off and put on new ones. So we can squeeze that clamp and slide that back where it goes. There we go. For that upper radiator hose, that's fairly easy. Whoops. We just pull that back, pull that onto the radiator itself, and sorry about shaking the camera there. We'll get that clamp back on where it goes. And there we go. Overflow line just plugs in fairly easy like that. Now we're ready to put these bolts back in that support the radiator. There's okay, for the driver's side, same thing, 2 more bolts here. And the one below, there's 2 holes there, it goes in the bottom hole. Okay, for the fan shroud, you just gotta line it up with the holes on the new radiator. It goes on pretty easily. We'll just put these on by hand first. There we go. I don't know if you can see that bottom one down there, but and for the other side, you just line this up. And the last one in the bottom. Okay, now you're ready to fill it with coolant. I like to use the Toyota brand. Top that off with some distilled water so we get the right ratio. I like to use that because that way there's no minerals in there getting into your cooling system and messing up your new radiator. Here's that little strip of foam I was talking about. I just tuck this in between the radiator and this little front support. I guess it's, the factory put it there, so probably just protects that plastic a little bit. And we can throw the cap back on. And we'll start it up and check for leaks. And that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck.